Hang on. All right, somebody's saying no audio on YouTube. Okay, I think you got audio now. I think that's for my MacBook. Let's see if maybe my AirPods are acting up again. Can you all hear me now? I think so. Okay, so my AirPods, something is wrong with my AirPods, so I just give up on them. As long as you don't have an echo, then we'll go with my MacBook microphone. My apologies. I was trying to check earlier if you all could hear. It didn't look like it. I got to figure out my AirPods. Anyway, let me do my thing over since you all didn't hear me. I was saying good morning and good afternoon depending on your location. This is Miss Bohemian Soul TV. This is Creating Home, a tiny house series. The segment we are about to kick off is one of our community conversations where we're literally just sharing in conversation in community. There are two other series in the segment, or two other segments in the series, I should say. The conversations on intimate spaces, where we are in conversation with someone in and around the tiny house movement. And then there is the What's Your Question, where I'm answering frequently asked tiny house questions. And I haven't done that in a while, so I'm going to try to see if I can share some content there. As I introduce myself, I like to say that I built a kind of fancy tiny house in 2015. And since that time, I have shared my journey to inspire others interested in the movement. I do offer coaching and consultations to help others in their tiny house journey. And once this goes live, you will be able to find links to schedule with me in the video description below the video. And as I'm doing all of that, I like to serve up a lot of representation in this movement. I want us to be able to see ourselves represented in the movement. It is my intent to build figurative and literal community that is inclusive and accessible. And if you find this information in the video helpful, I hope you will like it, you'll share it, subscribe to the channel, and then turn on the notifications so that you'll know when content is available and when we are live over here. All right, so thank you all. Clearly my AirPods are done. They're not showing up for me anymore. So I have to figure that out. Hello, Cynthia, welcome. It was good to get a chance to meet you. Hi, JD. Advent, thanks for letting me know, and JD, that there was no sound. Hi, Rosalind. How are you? Happy Sunday to you as well. Hi, Key. Thank you for being here. All right. Glad you all can hear me now. Good morning, day. Happy sunny Sunday in Miami. All right. Thank you all so much for joining on this Sunday. I am traveling. I am in Atlanta. Last Sunday we had a chance to chat with Charlotte from Black Expats in Panama. The relocation tools, services that she offers for folks leaving the U.S. She's centered on Panama, but she offers those services in other areas as well, and tours in other areas. And yesterday we had an event here in Atlanta, Conversations on Liberation, and we talked about it some last Sunday here, and then we had an opportunity to gather yesterday and Sunday, and it was a really, really beautiful event. I'm going to share some pictures on my social when I get a chance later today. Very nice event. The tie-in of liberation of obviously leaving the United States, especially specifically for Black folks. The white supremacy of the United States that is overwhelming and so prevalent and growing. Not to say that doesn't exist outside the United States. Most often outside the United States, it's well, I won't say most often. I hate when people say stuff like they have some numbers, but oftentimes it is colorism that we're dealing with outside the United States. But there is obviously racism throughout the world. And so we talked about the opportunities afforded for liberation in downsizing, the liberation that tiny houses offer in from getting to home ownership quicker, taking care of the earth, sustainability, all of that. And we obviously need to be paying more attention to that as we see all of the world events happening as a result of climate change. Also, the opportunities with less debt and or no debt for folks who have managed to completely get out of debt. And then also the less stress that tiny houses offer. And I think I've shared here in my current medical leave as I'm trying to navigate that process, which is absolutely the worst. Reduced income, no income, all of the things I have shared that my tiny house is absolutely saving my life. And I'm grateful for it. And it has been, having to apply the concepts of when I was building my tiny house, my why I've shared. And I think it's my very first post on Instagram where I said my why was around because I wanted to live and know freedom. And, conceptually, when you're envisioning taking something on and what purpose it's going to serve, and then when you have to go into practical application of this is what I was envisioning, and I'm grateful that the practical application is working because it is the thing that is allowing me to stay afloat right now. The fact that I don't have, a mortgage or high rent and own my home. So that is a beautiful thing for me. And that was a lot of the conversation that we talked about in the correlation of Blaxiting, Black folks exiting, Blaxiting, and tiny houses. And, tiny houses for individual solutions, tiny houses for income solution. Keisha's on, and we've spoken to her about tiny houses as ADUs and the opportunity for income there. And then also tiny houses for communities and collective, cooperative and collective economics and cooperative and collective liberation, all of those things. And so that was, it was a fabulous event and fabulous conversation. And thank you, Rosalind. It was well attended. It was a beautiful the sponsor of our event, Duke and Daisy Real Estate. I'm sure I'm screwing that name up. Let me try to see if I'm representing Nicole's company correctly. It is Duke and Allen. It is inspired by the dogs were Duke and Daisy. So I don't want you all to think I was completely crazy, but it's Duke, Allen and Co. And it is a real estate firm here in Atlanta. And Nicole was Duke and Allen, and Nicole was the sponsor for our event. And so we hosted it in a penthouse in Lenox, in the Lenox area. And it was a beautiful, beautiful location and a really nice event. Hey, Tawana. Happy Sunday. Happy to have you on. Hi, Arnell. Good morning. Happy to see you all in the chat. Hi, Teresa. Good morning. Teresa, I hope you got a package from me already. JD, thank you so much. And that's probably a good segue into my next. Thank you for that. JD said stuff happens. We know you always give your best. I appreciate that so much. And so we talked to Charlotte last week, so I didn't get to really recap the workshops that kicked off, the pre-festival workshop that kicked off, and then the workshops that I hosted as part of the Carolina Tiny House Festival. It was actually speaking to, from my perspective, in the portion that I was involved in and representing was absolutely fabulous. Teresa can attest to that. Hi, Miss BD. Miss BD can attest to that. She was one of our speakers. It was 3 days of absolutely fabulous content, just all around the tiny house movement. We talked about, tiny houses as individual solutions for dwellers. We talked about tiny houses. Miss BD spoke about tiny houses for aging in place, and opportunities that tiny houses present. We had a speaker who spoke about tiny houses used as opportunities for young people as they're aging out of the foster care system. There was a lot of conversation around dealing the legalities of tiny houses and tiny house communities, and how to have those conversations with city and county government officials. And Friday's event actually was with city, county, and government officials in the room, folks who are interested in change and wanted to be in the room with the folks who have been making the changes in their areas, and asking questions and learning all the things. And then there was a lot of sharing around tiny houses as income opportunities, as Airbnbs. There was just so much content. A lot of people representing their own communities that they've developed. Dan Fitzpatrick, who's done a lot of the work on the West Coast and other areas to enact some of the change around legislation. The legalities of tiny houses was the keynote on Saturday, and then Sunday, Booker T. Washington was the keynote, and he's here in the Atlanta area and has created, he represents Techie Homes, and he has two communities here, one in College Park and another that he's building in Union City. And so there were, it was a lot of, less conceptual conversation and more of, we've done the work, and we're here sharing the work that we've done, and the wins and the losses, and providing those blueprints for people who are interested in doing the same, and answering the questions for people who are interested in doing the same. So the workshops were housed in a separate area from the festival events, and so I was there for, like I said, Friday we were at a hotel, and then Saturday and Sunday we were on site in this their media center at the festival. And so I was there from like 10 to 5, just managing the workshops, and they were beautiful and they were flawless, and all of the speakers showed up and showed out, and Miss BD is saying the learning was tremendous. It was absolutely tremendous, and it was such a beautiful atmosphere to be in. We had 2 meeting rooms going because we had so many speakers and so much excellent content. For me, as I was putting this together, I wanted it to represent diversity and inclusion in the speakers. That's been one of the things in my 10 plus years in this movement. I have spoken so much about the fact that the festivals and the workshops aren't inclusive from a speaker perspective. It's mostly white men that you see for the events. They might have some women sprinkled in. They might have, at some point, they started adding black folks and a few black folks. But it's something that I've spoken about for many, many years. And as I've pushed about it, they pushed back. I received comments such as, Black folks don't have the portfolio of work that we do. And so basically, and I almost want to say the person who was very active in the tiny house movement said something about not being deserving of being on the rosters with the speaker lineups, because black folks didn't have the rosters. And to that, white people didn't wake up and have the rosters. They had to grow it. They had to grow it on the backs of some black folks too, who attended workshops and who bought their plans and who invested their money in speaking, with these people, so they grew that. And if you don't allow Black folks the opportunity, Black and brown people the opportunity to grow their portfolios, they never can, which is the same thing as when you talk about small businesses and the patronage of small businesses. If people don't patronize small businesses, how do they grow? How do they gain their experience? And so that, as I pushed, they most often would push back. And I've shared that I received an anonymous threatening email that they were tired of me, that I had a black heart, which is why I use black hearts in my post, they were coming for me because I was, I think crucifying, I think was the word they said, crucifying the good people in the tiny house movement, because my expectations were of inclusion and diversity. So the festival, the workshops were very important to me, to have diversity of speakers as well as diversity of content. I didn't want to just focus on how do you build a tiny house, and how do you design, how do you decorate your tiny house. I wanted to have the full genre of subjects that represent things that people need to know around tiny houses and building community and all of the things. And so, yes, Laura, redlining all over again, pushing us out, redlining in another sense. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And so that is why I volunteered to manage the speaker content as a board member, as a former board member for Tiny House Big Movement. And because I knew what had been rolled out before, and I knew what I wanted to see rolled out, and I knew what I wanted to show folks that could be done, because if you put in a little effort, it could be done. And so that I put in a lot of effort so that it could be done. And I went into a lot of effort in organizing it and making it, and which is how I got to the segue where JD said, "We know you always give your best." I put my whole effort into the workshops because I wanted them to be representative of me, of my brand, excellence, because I was rolling it out to folks who were paying their money to attend. And so I guess I would say Shirley saying more information than I knew I needed. Thank you so much. O'Day is asking, was this a recent email? Sorry to hear this. No, the threatening email came to me, I think it was 2017 or 2018 that the threatening email came, as I was pushing them to be inclusive and diverse. Thank you, Cheryl. But for the bonus for me for that, for them pushing back, and I'll say that the bonus for me for them pushing back was it forced me to focus where I needed to focus, and that was on our community. Instead of trying to tailoring my content, I don't want to say instead of trying to, tailoring my content for the audience, for the community that was not being included, which is my community, for people who look like me. And it gave me my purpose in this community, and it lit a fire in me on what I needed to do and why. And so for that, I'm grateful. I always joke about that email because at the time that I received it, my house was in Charlotte, in the center of Charlotte. I was like 3 miles from, Charlotte calls their downtown uptown, so I was 3 miles from uptown Charlotte, in a neighborhood that is undergoing gentrification, unfortunately, but is straight the hood, the area that I grew when I lived in Charlotte, the area that I lived in growing up, junior high and high school in Charlotte. And I chuckled and was saying, bring it. If you all are coming for me, I would love to see you roll up in this neighborhood. This would be the one time that you would regret coming for me, trying to roll up in this neighborhood. So I chuckled. Um, so the workshops, the work that I put into the event was some hard work, and without going into all of the details, there were other areas that I provided resources and my connections. There were a lot of areas, a whole lot of areas where I provided resources and connections that, as things weren't being done and getting done. But I was specifically responsible for the workshops. And so post the event, where there were a lot of complaints of the way the festival was run, that there weren't enough tiny houses. Wasn't There were folks who had driven several hours. One person I know specifically drove from Tennessee 3 hours to come down to the workshops and got on site, and there was no signage. None of the volunteers were aware that there were actually workshops happening. There was not the basic event management items that should have been on site, such as signage, the knowledge share, so that the people representing the volunteers were aware of the whole program, what was going on. Diagrams. When you go to an event, you're generally given a diagram of, this is here, vendors, exhibitors here, workshops here, that kind of stuff. And so there was a lot of opportunity for improvement from a basic ask for event management. So I'm not mad at the folks who have complained that they came because not everybody was attending for workshops. People in the movement who are trying to grow communities and building tiny houses and all of those things absolutely understood the value that they got in those 3 days or 2 days of workshops. That was what was rolled out in those 2 days. As a tiny house person, if it was me years ago just starting out, it was invaluable. It was in that one place, having access to all of these people was just amazing. So people who are actually in the tiny house movement or trying to be in the tiny house movement understand the value of those workshops. But again, folks who were trying to get to the workshops some of them couldn't get to the workshops. The woman who drove from Tennessee 3 hours, she ended up leaving and couldn't find the workshops. So not everybody even found the workshops, and then some people actually attended just because they're tiny house curious. They really have no desire to be in the movement. They want to see a tiny house. And so their intent was to come and have tiny houses to tour, and there were not enough tiny houses there. And so they felt that the event wasn't up to par. I can't fault them for that. If that was what they were sold and told, I can't fault them for that. Where the issue comes in for me is that my name and brand was associated with the event, purposely associated with the event from the perspective of the event organizers, because I have the larger brand. I've been in the movement for 10 years, so it was good for advertising. I recognized early on that could present a challenge for me, and it absolutely did, because my name was the visible one to when folks were complaining and wanting their money back. My name and brand was the one that they could attach to and complain about. And so I issued a statement. All I can do is apologize. Again, I was a board member I volunteered to manage the workshops, which I did fabulously. And I have used the words I, me, all of the things because I did all of that work. I, me. Those aren't words that I'm always comfortable with doing. I'm not the shine the spotlight on me person, but I did all of that work. And I worked hard as hell on that. And so I am not willing to share. Obviously, I didn't do all the speaking, but I did all the work of organizing and communicating and making sure those workshops ran like they were supposed to. There were 5 minutes between each of the sessions. We stayed on point. I had some volunteers that had instructions prior to the event of how to support the event, what was going on. They worked with me flawlessly. There was a woman who was basically in tears because she wanted to attend 2 sessions that were running concurrently, and she couldn't figure out where to go, and she just wanted all of the information. Unfortunately, we weren't able to record the sessions. That work was beautiful, and I'm taking the credit for that. However, I was not responsible for anything outside of that. I did not receive the monies that the festival earned. I can't offer any refunds because I didn't receive any of the monies that the festival earned. I offered an apology because I felt awful. I was kind of in my own silo doing my own thing and not knowing that people were already starting to complain early on. So I had no idea what was going down until mostly after the festival, and I started seeing some of the comments. I'm big on accountability, but I'm big on accountability of my accountability, the things that I'm responsible for. So all I could do is offer an apology. I can't offer any refunds. I can't make folks offer refunds. I can't make folks do things differently. I can't make them own things that they don't feel like they own. I can't do any of that. I can only be responsible for me, and I'm always going to be responsible for me. And accountability is high on my list. But with that, I'm not going to take responsibility for things I don't own. And so there was, some of the stuff was nasty. I absolutely deleted stuff. Like, I don't need to absorb any of that in my spirit that I'm not responsible for. I got enough going on that I'm not. I have learned in experiencing a mini stroke in December how much emotional experiences and energy will impact you physically and impact your heart, all of those things, the stress of my job, knowing that my job was stressing me and feeling anxiety in my chest, what I thought was anxiety, not knowing that it was impacting me physically. I'm not taking on anybody else's ish in my spirit that I'm not responsible for. And so I deleted a lot of comments. I deleted them off of my page, directed people to talk and share their feedback where that feedback was best represented. It wasn't me. I couldn't do anything about it. There was one post that I shared publicly, and a lot of people were bothered that I shared it. People said, well, you shouldn't even give that any energy. I shared it for a few reasons. The person was threatening. The person indicated they spoke specifically to seeing me at the event and what I had on and as I walked around the event. So that person knows me personally and what I look like. I'm gathering they have no idea of the other actual owner of this event, but they know what I look like personally, what I had on. They made some comments around what I had on, and they were threatening that they were going to be watching me. They also used words that the event was a scam, that I was a scam artist, and this was specific to me, that my brand, that I was a scam artist, and they were going to be warning my future customers that I was a scam artist. I take all of that seriously because, again, I owned responsibility for what I was responsible for, and Teresa said, you do your best, and the rest wasn't up to me. The rest wasn't up to me. I didn't own any of that. If I did, I would have gladly offered refunds as refunds were requested. This wasn't me, and I'm not. And so I shared that post purposely because the person was threatening. It was a white male. I believe in this time of in the world that we live in, we see a lot of terror and horror enacted by white deranged, and I'm not even going to say deranged, regular white men who, for whatever reason, believe very strongly in their ideals. Oftentimes, it is the core of it is white supremacy and racism. I couldn't understand the personal nature of his comment and why he called out what I had on, and he made a comment that was like a personal, it was supposed to be an insult to what I had on. It didn't bother me because I knew I was fabulous. But I couldn't understand what that was about. And someone called it out that it was more from the perspective of who is this black woman, and who does she think she is as she walks around here. And that made sense to me because I was like, what is the personal nature of his comment? But it was personal to me as a black woman, not necessarily personal to Jewel. And that I might have the audacity to walk around. And he said something about me taking pictures and instead of dealing with my customers and what was going on. So I shared it for that reason because of the threat that was involved. I also shared it because I'm calling folks out. So if you can be nasty, and so he assumed that he was commenting on Reddit and he had, the names that Reddit assigned. So he assumed there was some anonymity in his comment. I was able to piece together who it was based on some other comments that he had made under his actual name, so that the verbiage, all of the actions, everything was the same under that other name. And so that was another reason that I shared it, because I'm calling folks out. Like, if you can be nasty and threatening, then you can also be called out publicly. So folks who might know him, they can say, well, damn, you were nasty, or his job, whatever the consequences are for somebody who is threatening to other individuals, then, even if I was responsible for that, there's no right for someone to be physically threatening. I'm going to be watching this person. But anyway, I wasn't responsible for it is the main thing. And then the third piece of it, I did take legal action, and he has been served with a cease and desist. And as part of the cease and desist, I am requiring that the post that he made that referenced me as the scam artist and me as being responsible for some of the things that I wasn't responsible for, I'm requiring that he remove them. And he has 10 days to comply, and if not, then I'll take it further legally. Like, all I have right now is my name and my brand in this movement, and you all know that I am absolutely trying to grow my business and grow my work and lean into this to sustain me as I am on, as I'm trying to navigate what I'm doing with this medical leave and navigate, corporate America and what works best for me personally. And this is a reputation that I've worked hard to build over 10 years, and I've refused to allow it to be negatively impacted for someone else's lack of ownership and accountability. There has not been any comments out, owning that and dissolving me of responsibility. So I feel like I'm kind of out here handling all of this on my own when I shouldn't be. But not everybody handles accountability like I might handle accountability. So there's that. But anyway, so I kind of felt like I wanted to offer for folks who were, people inbox me, you should delete that. You shouldn't give it any energy. And people commented, you shouldn't give it any energy. There's a difference in giving stuff energy and holding people accountable, and that's exactly what I did. I'm going to defend myself absolutely, and that's exactly what I did. And so that was the explanation there. I'm not, so the good that came out of the festival was so much connection for me, opportunity for me to put into action the work that I want to do. And so there's absolutely some good there for me. And I'm not letting any of that take any of the negative take away from the work that I did and the joy that it brought me. So, but I did want to take the opportunity to speak to that. Rachel is saying, Grand Rising, good people from West Virginia mountains. The Tiny House Festival was the best and a wealth of info. All things concerning tiny houses as a viable response to affordability. Bang up job. She added it. Rachel, I'm going to need you to take that S off my name, but I love you and thank you so much for that comment. I always chuckle. Yesterday, I was requiring people to take the S off my name. It's okay. It happens all the time, but I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you there. Hi, Latasha. I think I shared this when Cheryl said more information than I knew I needed. Arnell is saying, thank you, Jewel. Before I saw your episode, I wasn't feeling connected to the possibility of having a tiny house. Thank you. One of the things that I learned early on, kind of from schooling, I've always existed in spaces where it was just me or maybe one or two others of us. And so I don't think not seeing us in spaces impacts me. I mean, I'm very much aware of it, and I think the older I get, the more I become aware of it. But it didn't impact me at that time that I didn't see us. And then it started hitting me that there are some folks who don't feel like they belong in a space if they don't see themselves. And it's important, and representation matters. I mean, that's clear. And so I'm grateful to hear comments like that. I remember early on in the tiny house movement, there was like this one tiny house group on Facebook that everybody was a part of, and there had been an event, and like this was 2016 or so. There had been an event that folks had, and a person in the group was sharing pictures of this event. And it was like picture after picture was of white people. And a black woman commented, and she asked, where are all the black people? And I ended up writing a post about that. But so I absolutely understood her question. And so she commented on these pictures. And then folks started saying, why do you have to bring race into it? We were having a good time. Somebody always has to ruin it with bringing race in. And I just kind of watched everybody comment. And then I went back and I commented and I said, for all of the white people who don't understand why race has to be brought into it, or why somebody is questioning that, I want you to think about this in reverse. And I said, I want you to think about something that you're interested in. Let's say it's not even tiny houses. You're interested in playing tennis, and you go to the tennis interest meeting, and you go to the second tennis interest meeting, and all you ever see is black people. I want you to think about how comfortable you would be existing in that space, and I also want you to think about whether you continue going and think tennis was for you if every time you went you didn't see anybody who looked like you. And I shared, you all have the privilege, which is part of white privilege. You all have the privilege to exist in the world, and it's changing, which is why they're so pissed off. We are the global majority, but you all have the privilege generally in existing in spaces where you're the majority, and everybody in that, and for the most part, everybody in that space looks like you. So you don't have to consider being in spaces where people don't look like you and what that would feel like for you. And again, that was kind of part of my journey in recognizing I had some work to do in a different role in this movement. And then, the older woman who had emailed me and said that I was the Harriet Tubman of tiny houses. Like, my role started becoming clear to me, what I needed to do. And how my responsibility as one of the most visible here. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Latasha. Hi, Effie Gaskin. I hope you are well as well. Kia saying, I read that exact post that you were speaking about. It seems to me that you were being blamed for things that you were not responsible for. I love that you stood your ground and acknowledged. Absolutely. Is there something else to this? Oh, okay. Absolutely. Again, I'm gonna own my stuff all the time. I Some folks will say I'm always in my head because I'm always analyzing the things that I do, and I always want to being the right person and being an accountable person, being an ethical person is something that's big for me, and probably something that adds to a lot of my getting in my own way. So, yeah, thank you very much. Alice saying the typical language used to exclude Black people. They fear our brilliance and creativity. They fear our economic success. Fear our power. You are the template for excellence. Thank you so much. The lie of white superiority and Black inferiority. There's a community that I'm part of, and that is their focus on us understanding how the lie of white supremacy and Black inferiority has impacted us as a people, as a community, for so many years, and it's embedded in who we are often, in our DNA, how we move about the world, and oftentimes you don't even know it, how it's negatively impacting you, because it is so pervasive in the world and society. Kia saying you took care of what you were responsible for and tried to guide them to speak with the people who were responsible for what they were dissatisfied with. Yes, absolutely. I don't feel like I have to own any of that. I don't have the money to, and I'm not owning the negative pieces of it. Like, there's no benefit to me. There was no benefit for me from the event, and that wasn't what I went into it. I'd hoped, like, we were so close to just being so damn fabulous, and there was so much opportunity, and so much possibility. But on the flip side of that, there's the benefit for me had to do with the workshops and the work that I rolled out, and the contents, and the call to action that came out of that has a lot to do with the work that I feel like I need and want to do going forward. But I'm not owning the negatives of it. The many of the comments that are singing the praises of the festival are relative to the workshops, and so in some ways I feel like the workshops kind of carried the festival, and is and because the people who are speaking to that are the people who have the platforms and the voices in the movement, so it kind of is in some ways drowning out some of the negative. And again, I'm being accountable for I did that, and so I'm taking the credit where the credit is due, and I'm assigning credit where it is required, and I'm not taking any unnecessary credit. Negative. Onward and upward. Absolutely, L. V is saying, I received so much info, Jewel, that it's taken me a couple of weeks just to allow it to sink in so that I'll know where to go from here. The event was overwhelmingly informative. You outdid yourself. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The woman who I spoke to, who I spoke a bit about, was just about in tears trying to decide which session to go to. I felt sad for her, but I also just was like, damn, this is really good. Like, I've never been in a situation where I almost felt moved to tears to figure out which workshop to go to. And it was just, for me, a beautiful testament, even though, at the expense of her being upset. I'm not saying I wanted her to be upset, but it was just like a beautiful testament to, what was going on, and what was the work that I had done. So thank you for that. Thank you, Elle. Effie is saying, interesting that the more that we as a people try to carve out a community for our well-being, the more the other kind of folks come at us to destroy it. Yet we are the lazy ones, the welfare ones. Absolutely. I mean, we can take that back to Black Wall Street. We can take that back to the community that Central Park in New York. All of the communities, and there's a list of names. Maybe that's what I'll share in the description. The flourishing Black communities that were destroyed by white mobs for that very reason. They were flourishing. Folks were doing well, and they couldn't stand to see it. They didn't want that to happen. And so they destroyed those communities. As we were just talking about redlining. Then you go back to, and yesterday, I talked about this yesterday, how, we know about land being stolen from the beginning with enslavement and all of the things. But it was, the GI Bill, and how there were Black folks who served in the Army, Black men who served in the Army, and when they came back and the GI Bill was enacted so that people could own homes, and it wasn't available to Black folks who had been in the Army. And then you go to redlining, and then you go to predatory lending practices that still occur today. Like all of the things that are enacted within this system, that are systemic things that are there so that we can't flourish and that we can't prosper. And still we do. And the challenges, and folks want to say, let it go. Enslavement was over, 400 years ago. But the residue of the wealth that was made from enslavement is still the core of the banking system of the white wealth. And all of the things that, and I think I saw something that I can't remember what the years was. It was like 200 something years that it would take for us to catch up, for Black folks to catch up in wealth with the wealth gap. And that also would have to mean, for us to catch up would also have to mean that they can no longer earn wealth. So they would have to stop earning wealth based on land and monies and things that have been stolen. And then it would still take 200 something years for us to close the wealth gap. This is a system that we can't win in because it is systemically designed so that we don't win. There are absolutely some of us doing well, and that's what white people like to throw in. Well, what about a Oprah? What about a Michael Jordan? Those are that's not the norm. It's not impossible for people to do well, but it is in a system where you have to show up and be multiple times over better than our counterparts to even be taken seriously or to even be able to compete. And so, yeah, that's a big thing. And it is absolutely, that is the next thing. It is absolutely exhausting. When we think about this work that's being done against DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, not teaching that in school and eradicating the I can't think of the act. y'all know the act that I'm talking about, that schools were required to consider to ensure that they're hiring diverse. I can't think of it right now. Anyway, the getting rid of that and the actions to get rid of that. Somebody's going to tell me what I'm trying to say. Let me go all the way to the bottom. Oh, it's a lot of comments. But y'all know what I'm talking about. Getting rid of that because they feel like we've benefited from it. I remember when my daughter was at Harvard Law, and some of the white boys in her class were trying to say that she was only there because of the. It's right here on the tip of my tongue. Somebody tell me what I'm trying to say. Y'all know what I'm talking about. For schooling, what is it? Anyway, I can't think of what it is, but white women benefited from it mostly. Why can't you? Well, y'all know I already told you sometimes my words don't show up. It's going to show up soon. Anyway, it didn't even benefit us as it should have. White women were the number one beneficiaries of this thing that they're getting rid of now. So it is operating in fear that we'll achieve our greatness, and that is, it is exhausting, absolutely exhausting. Thank you, Keisha. I appreciate that so much. Yes, Cynthia, self-care first. Hi, Lorraine. It was a pleasure to meet you as well. Thank you so much for being here. Jeanette is saying, I drove from Richmond, Virginia. I am still on a high. Tiny house of solution. I want to volunteer next time. I don't know what my next time looks like, but I'm glad you're still on a high from that. I am. That's stuff that's good for me to hear, because I'm still on a high of knowing what was rolled out, even though the negatives have come in, but I too am still on a high of what was done and what was shared in the audience and the participation and the speakers. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Rachel is saying the workshops were diverse and rich in information and context. There was a sufficient representation of physical houses to compare. Peace and blessings to you for a job well done. Thank you so much, Rachel. Day is saying, Jewel, you made it clear to us in this space that you were responsible for the workshops and not the tiny home tour. Your apology should suffice. I'm glad you shared where upset patrons could direct their ire, I know you mean their complaints. Absolutely. Folks got to own what they got to own. Jeanette is saying, volunteering for the next one. I want to do an event in DC, maybe around the time that there is the bigger housing thing that happens by HUD, that's put on by HUD. But the space where I want to do the event can only house one, maybe two tiny houses, and so I need to work on that, and then share as there will be some opportunities to attend and support. So thank you all for that. Sounds like envy and jealousy as well as efforts to shut us down. I agree with that. Day is saying patrons should request a refund through their credit card company. Don't be deterred. You are doing amazing things for the Black community. Thank you so much. Yeah, they do it. I feel like they should do what they need to do to recoup their funds. I love to see community members chatting with each other, talking about, I got your text. That makes me smile. Doris is saying, sounds like someone is trying to sabotage you and your successful tiny house progress. Yeah. Yeah, which is why I have to work to safeguard my reputation and the successes. I've worked hard for it. Thank you. Key is saying, Soul Collectives, don't forget to like the video. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Like it, share it, do all of the things so that YouTube, this is one way I can grow my portfolio is through this YouTube channel. So please, do all of those things. B is saying, I have seen negative feedback from those unaware and could only suggest that the next time they read through the event's agenda to know exactly what they're attending. If needed, sue, hit them in his pockets. Absolutely. The legal system doesn't necessarily work for us, but I use it when I can. And so he's got 10 days. And as part of that, I required that he sign a form acknowledging that he and send it back. Like, I just really want him to have to go through some steps to acknowledge that you called out the wrong person, buddy. Not me. Not me. Teresa is saying, please don't let them steal your joy. Don't give them the power. I'm proud you stood your ground. Absolutely not giving anybody my power. Thank you, Teresa. Not doing it. I had to be quiet for a minute because one of the things that has been big for me as a young person growing up is it is something that annoys me to no end, not being given credit for good that I do and then being wrongly assigned responsibility for things that I'm not responsible for or I've not done or have not been responsible for. And it would probably go on the list of childhood trauma. As you become an adult and you do the work with therapists and do all of those things, you know your traumas. And that for me is big on my list, and I know where it comes from. And so this thing triggered a lot of that because I hate that. I hate not being given credit for the good that I do and being wrongly assigned responsibility for things I have no parts of, especially when I work really hard. So I had to sit in that, and gratefully I have done the work through therapy to work on those childhood traumas, so it was easier to move through it and to not let it steal my joy, as Teresa is saying. But it was a trigger, and you have to know your triggers, and you have to do the work to be able to work through your triggers. And I'm grateful that I've had some great counselors, and I'm doing the work. I continue to do the work so that I can be a whole and healthy person. B is saying attendees should have known the value in the workshops and networking and not think that the few homes showcased was the sum total of the event. It was their loss. I agree with that to a point, but then there are folks who are just tiny house curious. They have no desire to learn more about tiny houses to the extent of attending one workshop. And so they just really want to come to an event, see tiny houses, and walk through tiny houses, which is part of the reason. So it's twofold, and I shared this as part of my explanation. So it's hard to get tiny houses, builders, and dwellers to come to an event because there isn't really a big benefit for them, because the folks a large majority of the folks that are coming out are the tiny house curious. They just want to see a tiny house, walk through a tiny house, experience a tiny house because of curiosity, because of the fad that tiny houses are. So they have no interest in anything else than just experiencing a tiny house. And so those people aren't builders and dwellers who might have a business. It's not their customers. It is not the people that are going to spend any money with them. And so they feel like it's a waste of their time to come on site to a festival because, people are traipsing through their house, touching all the stuff, breaking stuff, being rude. Like one event, folks, you have to, it's like people lose their mind. They'll go lay on the bed, or I was at an event and I was responsible for one of the tiny houses, and folks wanted to see how many people could cram in the shower. Just stuff like that, that people have no manners oftentimes. And I've shared with you all, like when my house was in public areas where people would stop and come to my door and ask me could they come in my house and look around. It's like, hell no. Like, where what in what life would you stop at somebody's house, a traditional house, and knock on the door, ring the bell, and ask somebody, can I come in and look at your house? You wouldn't. So their tiny houses are this thing, this fad that people are enamored with, and or maybe they think folks are weird or whatever they think. So they just really want to see a tiny house. They have no interest in anything else. And so those people aren't builders and dwellers customers. So it's a waste of their time to come to an event, to bring their houses for 2 days and just have people walk through them. They may or may not get a sale from 2 days of work. Where if they're on their site, the people who are calling and coming to visit specifically are interested in business from a business perspective. And it also costs, a nice chunk of money to transport a tiny house. The times I've moved my home, it's not cheap. And so all of that expense, and you're not really getting anything out of it. So I understand that from the builder perspective. But then there was also more effort. And because I was behind the scenes, there was more effort needed on the part of the event organizer to secure tiny homes and put some more effort into working that. And I shared that several times. And so I know, and I can speak to specifically that there needed to be more effort. So it was a two-parter there in responsibilities. And also tiny house builders, and I've said this from the beginning, it's kind of part of what my conversation was. There's racism in the tiny house movement. They're cliquish. They're gonna support who they want to support. So they'll go to some events, and this was a new event. This was Black woman run event. So some of that, racism ties into that as well. Racism is just the undercurrent in a lot of things. I'm not saying that it completely was that, but possibly was part of it. So there were several things, but there was also more responsibility on the part of the event organizer. And then for folks to come and not being able to have signage or people on site know the things that were going on, those are complete misses that should have been expected of an event. That's again, basic event management 101. So there were several things that people have to own and be accountable for. And some of the folks who are upset about it, a lot of them are right in their upset, and I can't fault all of them. Teresa saying, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Show some love and buy some merch. Thank you very much. Let me drop some links. B is saying, Jewel, I rubbed shoulders with millionaires at your event. This was unexpected and so valuable. My experience was so enriched by all of what I encountered. You absolutely did. And that was a beautiful opportunity to have folks there who have done the work and are making money and to be there, and you all had the opportunity to connect with them. So thank you. I'm glad you experienced that and appreciated that. Okay, so I dropped my link for merch. I think I need to get down. I know it's a lot of comments I see. Let's see. Affirmative action. Thank you, L. Jesus, that's why I was. That's why I love y'all. It just would not. Yes, affirmative action, y'all. It just could not come to my brain. I thank y'all. I knew y'all would help me. Let me see. It's a lot of comments that let's see. They are saying slanderous comments require you to defend yourself. A good name is worth it. They are trying to stop you. This latest slander will propel you to even greater heights. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Day. Again, I ignore a lot. That one was response worthy. Good morning, Mara L. Good morning. I'm glad you made it. Um, I'm glad you're here. Hope you're doing well too. Thank you, Sheila. It's temporary. We know it's temporary. Um, thank you so much. Teresa saying, I saw at least 5 people come up to you at this event to thank you for being our voice for people of color, and they wanted to personally meet you and say how much they appreciated you for what you do. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. The people who said they traveled just to meet me, that always really, really makes me feel good because I don't see myself the way or see myself, period, or even see the impact that I have on other people. One of the Miss Miss Ann, who came on Friday to the workshop, shared that she had seen me speak in 2016, and I just posted this on Instagram. She shared that she had seen me speak in 2016, and she was completely unaware about tiny houses. But since that time, she has built quite a few, 3 or 4 shed to tiny house conversions on her property, and she rents them in for traveling nurses, and it's the thing that is saving her in retirement, and as she needs funding in retirement and caring for an ill relative. So those are the things that and there was a young woman who I'm meeting with next week. She's coming to Charlotte. She was from Missouri. Yes, Missouri. And she said that until she heard me speaking about tiny houses, she's a single mom, and she didn't get a tiny house, but she got a manufactured home. And she said it was the thing that had saved her and her family, and she hadn't considered that opportunity prior to me speaking. So it is those things, the things like that that help me see the value of the work that I'm doing and the impact, and kind of help me see myself as I think you all see me, because I don't. I ain't getting ready to cry today. So thank you. I appreciate that so much. I'm not crying today. Yes, Sheila, they know. Black and brown people, we need to support each other more. Absolutely. Cynthia, you be careful out there. I agree, Rosalind. My name was the name that folks could find and attach to, and that my brand visibility. Absolutely. Day is reminding y'all to hit the like button. Sheila, Lake Lanier, Georgia. That's one of the places where they flooded a black community, and Lake Lanier stays snatching souls right now. And many folks don't know the history of Lake Lanier. And I just recently saw that they are creating some type of amusement park on Lake Lanier. And it's just like, y'all just ain't gonna learn. I don't mess around with Lake Lanier. Sharonda, I am going to message you. Hello, I'm glad you caught me this morning too. I am going to message you because I extended my stay one more day, and I would like to see if you're available. Rosalind, you too. I messaged you. Agree 100%. Effie is saying, I'm sorry that lady was in the situation of being moved to tears, but on the other hand, that shows that there was an abundance of riches that were being offered. Absolutely. I felt terrible for her, but absolutely. Cynthia's saying, in my Alicia Keys voice, this girl is on fire, meaning you, Jewel, don't stop. I won't, and I can't stop this. I shared that, for me, a lot of the events for the workshops was almost like an out of body experience for me, because I've shared with y'all that I am such an introvert. And I was kind of watching myself, just enjoying the event and the people and the comments and the conversation, and just observing myself in the mode of, this is my passion, and this is where I feel extroverted, and I made a post and I said I'm a introvert but a tiny house extrovert. I can talk about tiny houses and the joy that mine brings me, and the opportunities for affordable housing, and especially for our community, because I see so much opportunity that we need within our community, that tiny houses offer. And then affordable housing all over throughout the world, because housing is a right that everyone should have, and there's so much opportunity here that tiny houses can help with. Not saying they're the answer, but they're one of the answers. And yeah. Teresa's saying, I think if you had more control over this event and the advertising of it, we'd have shut the city down and everyone would have wanted to speak and attend this event. Loved everything you did. Teresa, that's the thing that bothers me, is that there was so much opportunity to be so fabulous and to literally make history, because I believe the event was one of the most attended events of tiny house events, and there was so much opportunity. Wall Street, yes. And Sheila's saying, and still we rise. Absolutely. And they keep moving the cheese. Absolutely. And that's one book I hate, Who Moved My Cheese. I cannot stand that book, but absolutely. Ella saying, come celebrate with me that something has attempted to kill me and fail all the time. They are all about suppression of our greatness. Absolutely. I appreciate you all coming through with affirmative action, because y'all know that's what I was trying to say. I just could not get it to come out. Shirley's saying, I traveled from California to the festival. I am talking tiny and looking forward to living tiny. Yes, I also found it hard to make a decision on the workshops, wanting all the information. Thanks. Travel from California. And yes, I saw your reels on Instagram. I think I shared one. I meant to share one. If I haven't, I need to go back and do that if I didn't. Key is asking, will someone please share how to get the black heart? So the black hearts that I use are on my iPhone, and it's one of the, what do you call it, the options that you have in your emojis, where emojis have the red, black, all of those different color hearts, and I always use the black heart. And for me, it became my signature after I was told I had a black heart. So yeah. AX Fuller saying, I hate you receive backlash. I'm so excited for what you're doing in and for the community. I am in Seattle, just attended RV and Tiny House Fest. Only 2 tiny houses, worth it. I hope to see you next year. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, white women benefited the most from affirmative action. Absolutely. And they like to be angry and feel like we benefited. My story when I was talking about my daughter getting into Harvard Law, and the white boys made sure that they let all of the black and brown folks in her, I think it was called an L1. She was an L1 her first year. I think that's what it was called. They were quick to let them know that they felt like they had only gotten in because of affirmative action. And, and my daughter was feeling some type of way about it. And I was like, you took the LSAT just like they took the LSAT. So, no, it wasn't affirmative action. They didn't grade your LSAT on a curve. You worked to get my daughter graduated summa cum laude from undergrad. So you worked hard as hell, if not harder, to get there, and you deserve to be there. And then it wasn't so long after that it started coming out, all of the affluent white folks who had been paying for their kids to get in colleges, and that came out, that how they had paid the schools to get their kids in colleges. We don't have that luxury. So yeah, white women benefited the most. Absolutely, Effie. Thank y'all for the affirmative action. Absolutely. Oh, it does. Okay, so Day is saying the black heart appears when you type the word black in the comments. Click it. Okay. Oh, I see. Thank you. Y'all, y'all always teaching me something. Thank you for that, Day. I didn't know that. Yes, Secretary Fudge is retiring from HUD. I hope her successor is also open to tiny houses. One of the benefits of the work that I had done prior to the festival was connecting with someone from HUD. And so I hope to be able to use the connections there to have some further conversations. Y'all know I was stalking Secretary Fudge for a while, and every time she'd talk about affordable housing, I'd ask her about tiny houses. So I'm gonna miss stalking her, and but I intend to keep stalking them to talk tiny houses. Capitalism is financial and social cannibalism. I agree with that. V is saying perhaps your space, the DC event, can involve an auxiliary space that attendees can travel to. I cannot wait since I'm in DC right now. Bring it, Jewel. Yes, so I think I want to connect with that event. I want to look at the dates. They usually bring a lot of houses to, I think it's called the mall. I think that's what it's called. I want to do workshops and have some educational content in, like I said, 1 or 2 tiny houses. So, yeah, yeah. Hi, Troy. So Troy is saying, thanks for Saturday, Jewel, no S. And so Troy attended the event yesterday. And it's funny, Troy, because I just said that earlier. Someone made a comment and they had an S on my name, and I chuckled that I just had the conversation yesterday. I got a chance to meet Troy yesterday at our event here in Atlanta. Troy, I didn't get a chance to, I got a thumbs down. I didn't get a chance to hang out yesterday. I ate and came back to this hotel room, and I think I was out for the count before it was even dark. So hopefully I get to connect next time. But thank you for coming. Teresa is saying there's always going to be naysayers and negative nannies, so you have to rise above and stomp out that stuff. Glad you got your shirt. Teresa was one of my volunteers Saturday and Sunday at the event, and so I sent her a Soul Collective t-shirt, so I'm glad you love it. Okay, I see folks got the key, got the black heart. I'm glad. Thank y'all. I'm glad I learned something from y'all today. I always learn something from you all. Let's see. I agree. I agree. McFadden and Whitehead is in the comments. Rosalind is saying what I said. They just built, I knew they were building something. They just built a water park at Lake Lanier. They don't believe fat meat is greasy. Like, so the black folks who go, I think the word is spreading within our community that we don't mess with Lake Lanier. And so, yeah, I'm going to let them keep going. I don't mess around with Lake Lanier at all. Yes, Arnell. There have been some beautiful things. Rosalind is saying, I saw a meme that said black excellence is a fallacy. It really is exposure of white mediocrity. It is, because it is. Like, that's a whole... I've been in the workspaces where, folks, my counterparts get to roll out like the bare minimum, and it's acceptable, or do the bare minimum, or show up as the bare minimum, and it's acceptable for things that as a black person you get fired for. So I absolutely agree that it is the exposure of white mediocrity. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Teresa. I agree. Agree. Key is saying, no Lake Lanier for me. Um, do you gotta know the history. And it's unfortunate. I'm not laughing at the people who've lost their lives, but there is consequence for not doing and being right. And Lake Lanier flooded a black community, and there's consequence for not doing and being right. And sometimes the people who experience the consequence might not have been involved in it, but it's karma, reaping what you sow, all of the things, whatever you want to call it, it happens. So there's that. Cynthia got the black heart. So thank y'all. All right, good people. Day is saying, can someone enlighten me on Lake Lanier? I have a note here to share since we talked a lot about it, about the black community. So Lake Lanier is a lake here in Georgia. Big boating area. Folks go and do tubing, all of the things. Actually, Usher's stepson, I believe, was killed at Lake Lanier. And so the lake was formed because I'm not exactly sure who did it, but they flooded a black community to form this lake. And there's always a lot of loss of life at Lake Lanier. And accidents, drownings, all of the things happen in our community, and folks, I believe it, seem to feel like it's almost cursed or haunted, if you want to. I don't necessarily want to use the word haunted, but cursed. That so here's the thing, and I said this about something else that I'm not going to say publicly. When you don't start things off on the right foundation, they can't expect to flourish. That's just impossible. Starting things off on the wrong foot. And so Lake Lanier is an example of that. Started from the absolute wrong foot, and it can't expect to flourish. So there's always, as Key is saying, a lot of lives lost at Lake Lanier. And I was correct in that Usher's family experienced loss there. So that is Lake Lanier, and that happened a lot, where things like that, where black communities, flourishing black communities, were burned down, torn down, flooded for white spaces. Rachel is saying, I especially enjoyed meeting women in the construction trades like LaToya, which she built the city. More women in the trades will have impact in affordable housing. Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. LaToya talked about that, and the impact that they're seeing for women being in construction, and men are acknowledging the impact that women and the temperament, I think would be an okay word to use, that women bring to the construction industry, that benefits the construction industry. It was a beautiful thing to interact with her and have her. There was also on the panel, and the women leading change in construction in the tiny house movement was a really good panel discussion that I enjoyed being part of. All right, good people, it's 1:30. I thank you all for showing up. Yes, LaToya was absolutely amazing. Showing up and engaging as you do. I really, I can't say it enough. I'm not crying today. I cannot say enough. Whereas thank yous for joining, participating, engaging as you do. The supporting is big. I'm not crying today. I thank you all a million times over. It is giving me life, the way that you all support and show up, and help me do the things and see the things and see myself. And so I am very, very grateful for that. Immensely grateful for it. And I am happily in Atlanta. The sun is shining. Y'all know Atlanta is my city. I don't know that I want to move my house back here, but Atlanta is my city, and I miss being here. My mom is here. My siblings are here. I'm taking my mom to go get her nails done and grab some lunch and hang out with her a bit, and then ride around in the sunshine. The love that I have for Atlanta, where black folks are black folks and they represent and they're doing all the things, that just brings me so much joy. I was supposed to connect with Booker, but I haven't heard back from him. I wanted to visit his community and talk with him, so we'll see if he reaches back out. If not, I will do the things that I do and mind my business. Thank you all so much. Happy Sunday, everybody. Let me do my official closeout. Thank you, Day. I love you all immensely. I like immensely. Thank you. I feel it, and I so appreciate it. Key is saying, I say you come on back and come specifically to Lawrenceville or close by. You know, Lawrenceville is my area where I lived for many years and raised my child. Yes, no Robert today, no Crystal. Missed you all. I hope to have you all back soon. So thank you all very much. I am doing my closeout, and I hope everybody has a great week. And I will see you all next week. And I have some stuff to share, community stuff to share, building community, physical community stuff to share that I'm excited about sharing, and hopefully we'll be able to share next week some more details. So more to come. Thank you all for joining. This has been one of our fabulous community conversations. Thank you all for being here. And I hope everyone has a great Sunday, and we'll talk again soon. Take care.